Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. I thought it was about time that I did an M2 competition update. I've had this car for almost 9 months now and done exactly 9,000 miles in it, so 1,000 miles a month. Might not sound like a lot of miles, but when you consider I'm fortunate enough to have another press car a lot of the time, like I have at the moment. I've got an RS5 Sportback parked at home, so I do a lot of miles in my press cars. I usually do a lot of daily stuff in those and save the M2 as my special car, and that's part of the reason that I went for the manual in the first place. A lot of people ask me, manual DCT. I don't think there is any wrong or right choice. I love manuals and I love the satisfaction it gives me, the interaction I have. I absolutely love the manual box, and because once again I am very fortunate enough to have a press car a lot of the time alongside this car as well, and my work car being a 7 Series that's an auto, obviously it's just lovely to step into something like this, which is quite old school, and just stir the box, you know. It's just brilliant. Around 2,500 miles of the 9,000 miles that I've done were on the brilliant Spanish petrol head tours, and once again there wasn't one point in that trip where I regretted having the manual. I had to work harder with it to keep up with the pack sometimes. DCT would have made life a little bit easier, but that's not what it's about. To me, it's about the involvement, the passion, and the fact that you do have to work harder to make the manual car keep up with, say, a DCT equivalent. I absolutely love that. Big shout out to Tony Lewis and Berry BMW for always looking after me and obviously selling me this car in the first place. I'll put a link to Tony's email address below. If you're looking at buying a BMW, please drop him a line, because I'm sure he'll give you a very good quote. And more importantly to me, it's all about the after sales and stuff with Tony. It's about how much he cares and appreciates his customers, and he also thinks long term. You know, he looks after you initially, but he'll continue to look after you because obviously he wants you to come back and buy another car off him in 2, 3, 4 years. So he's not your typical salesman of thanks a lot for your money, see you later. He is there to look after you. So please drop him a line if you are looking to buy an M2 Competition, or any BMW for that matter. Unfortunately, about 5 months ago, so towards the end or the middle of the winter, I think it was about March sort of time. Oh, beautiful ponies. Somebody reversed into my car whilst it was parked in my car park. So I share a car park with a pub, which, you know, is not ideal because you do get a lot of people, not saying they're drunk, but you get a lot of very sketchy people coming out or coming in, and they decide to do 3-point turns in a space that's just not big enough. And unfortunately, on this particular occasion, someone reversed straight into my car, quite hard as well. I'll insert a CCTV clip now that I actually recorded off my phone, because their CCTV computer's so prehistoric we could get it onto a tape, so it's a little bit shaky and rotten. But yeah, check this out. As you can see, it clearly hit the car quite hard, and I don't know what was going on, but didn't leave a note or anything. It was just one of those typical sort of, yeah, hit and run. Thankfully no one was hurt, but a minor hit and run. And yeah, buggered off and didn't leave any details, nothing at all. So I was left in the predicament of what to do, because as some of you might know, I had the front end of my car PPF, which has been great and certainly protected it on things like the petrol head tours and other road trips that I do with my mates. You know, when you're following them, especially on a wet day when you're getting lots of stones thrown up and stuff. But of course, the rest of the car's not PPF, so that particular incident caused quite a gash, I guess you'd call it, in the side of my bumper. So it's too small an incident to call my insurance, because all that's going to do is I'm going to have to pay a premium, well, I'm going to have to pay an excess, then I'm going to pay premium on my insurance for the next few years. You know what it's like with insurance, you're always too scared to claim unless it's something really big, because you're just going to pay for it over the next few years. So didn't bother calling them over such a small incident. The other option obviously is to take it back to a main dealer who do, you know, a superb job. But the negative of that is usually time. They usually want 2 or 3 days to fix the car, so you've got to book it in, wait for that. If you want a courtesy car, then you've usually got to wait at least a few weeks these days to actually get a courtesy car. And then on top of that, you then end up paying, you know, main dealer prices, which, to be fair, they can justify, because they would probably remove the whole bumper and respray the whole bumper, and might actually have to blend in the panels, etc. So it could be anywhere from sort of £400 up to 800 quid-ish, depending on the dealer and depending on the quote. So obviously that at the time was my only option, so I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it for now. It's winter, I've still got the petrol head tours coming up, I had a track day coming up. I thought no point in repairing that. I'm not, you know, this isn't too much of a garage queen for me, this car, at all. But obviously on a 3 or 4 month old car, with a sort of mark like that on the bumper, it wasn't ideal, so I did want it fixed, but I thought I'll wait for the right time to get it fixed, and do it then. Then I remembered a company called ChipsAway. In fact, I see the vans driving around all the time, and I actually used them many years ago. I'm talking back in about 2007 or 8, on my BMW 130i, when that had a small mark on one of the wings. So yeah, I went online and put in my details, put in the postcode of where I wanted the car fixed, not where I particularly live, but obviously for me that's the same thing. So yeah, and then a short time later, basically I had a technician come out and give me a free quote for the repair, and an estimate on how long it was going to take, and also when he could do it. So he came out, and much to my surprise, he quoted me just under 200 quid to get it fixed, and said it would take about 3 to 4 hours. So that was complete music to my ears, because obviously 200 quid I could suck up, and also, more importantly, it was the fact that he could come to my workplace, in my case home, when I was doing bills one day, because I run my own business, and I spend many days a month at home. So whilst I was cracking on doing my own work, he was out there fixing my car that wasn't being used anyway, and it's a blatant case of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And yeah, he done a superb job, fantastic job. Obviously I was out there disturbing him a little bit with the camera, but it was just brilliant. And now my car is back to full health again. Well, at least aesthetically. Yeah, there's a few little marks here and there, but those big annoying marks have gone. And I've actually cleaned the car a couple of times in the past few weeks, because I'm not afraid to sort of uncover those horrible marks, whereas before I was just leaving it dirty because you couldn't really see them. They blended in with the rest of the car. Check out ChipsAway. I'll put a link to their website in the description below. And if you have something on your car, obviously there's a lot of things they can't do on the roads. They can't come out and fix, say the side of your car's been keyed all the way along, whatever. There's certain limitations, you know. They can't work absolute miracles, but they can work minor miracles, and they do have bigger workshops that they can do bigger jobs in. What else is new on my BMW M2 Competition? Well, as some of you might have noticed on Instagram especially, many of you noticed actually, I've put the original wheels back on, and the main reason for that really is I've been looking at getting some lightweight wheels for track day use, because the AC Schnitzer wheels were originally just going to be on winters. I really love them, and then I decided to put summers on them and run them through the summer, but then I just fancied a bit of a change, and they also need a really good clean, so I pulled them off to give them a proper clean. They've got some very worn Cup 2s on them at the moment as well that need changing, so I thought, you know what, I'll put my original wheels on that have still got some fairly fresh Michelin Pilot Super Sports on them. It's been raining in the last few days, so it's worked out really well, in fact. And I actually really like these wheels now. Initially I wasn't too sure on them, but now I really like the way they look. But ideally I want some lightweight wheels that will feel better on track and stuff, because there's one thing that the M2 Competition isn't, and that is a lightweight car. It's a heavy old car. It's over 1,600 kilos. And that's way before you put me and other stuff in it. So it's not a light car. It's certainly a lot heavier than you would think to look at, because its dimensions are not massive. For those of you that are new to my channel, let's run over what I've done to my M2 Competition since I've had it. My first upgrade off memory was my beautiful Royal steering wheel, which I had fully covered in Alcantara, and actually some of the padding taken out as well. Just transformed the car as far as I'm concerned, gave back some of the feel. I talk about it a lot on my channel. Manufacturers just seem to put way too much padding in steering wheels, and some people actually go out and get more padding put in, which I just don't get at all. But maybe that's just me. What was that line? What was that line through there? But yeah, absolutely love my Royal steering wheel. I just think it feels so good. And when I jump in a normal M2 Competition that's still got the standard wheel, it just seems to lose any steering feel. So fantastic. That was my first upgrade off memory. Then I had the AC Schnitzer lowering springs put on. So they're only about 20 millimeters front and rear lower, but a little bit stiffer as well, which sometimes isn't the best for the UK, I must admit. But then when I'm in places like Spain or Germany, and where the roads are really smooth, they just feel fantastic. And also out on circuit, that extra stiffness just helps support the car a bit more. I've also got some very thin spacers on here, TPI spacers, which really add to the aesthetics of the car. I think the car itself looks fantastic at the moment, especially with the standard wheels on it. Really gives it some major stance. So yeah, I had the spacers and the springs done at my friends at Motec Performance, and yeah, that certainly, if anything, improved the aesthetics of the car. But the overall stiffness has really helped it on track and stuff, especially when I was at Landau recently, putting big loads through the car. I mean, that track really is relentless. It's short and relentless, but this car really held its own with two people in it, and yeah, it was great. In fact, I'll put a little clip of that in now. Things like the P3 gauge, which is integrated into my right hand air vent here, and that just gives me temperatures and stuff, which for daily use really probably isn't that necessary. But this car gets used pretty hard, and when I'm on track or on things like the Petrohead tours and you're at altitude and stuff, it's really nice to be able to keep an eye on temperatures. Although the car will, you know, hopefully go into limp mode or whatever if it is having some kind of heating issue, it is still nice to just keep an eye on things. And it's quite interesting as well, and you can just gaze down at it there. It's all there. You can have whatever you want, you know, your water, your oil temperature, your air temperature, but it also has things like boost on there, or your noughts. You can time your 0 to 60s and stuff, which for me is probably a little bit gimmicky in a manual car, but I don't know, a lot of people might enjoy that. What else do we have? We've got the AC Schnitzer Pedal Box. So I actually got these done out at AC Schnitzer in Aachen in Germany, and again, it's one of those things that I wouldn't necessarily have normally got too excited about, and I thought more it would be aesthetics and whenever I see pictures of them, but in use they're just fantastic, and they just make things like heel and toe so much better. There's loads of really nice grip on there. The rubber they use is very grippy. So yeah, again, something that I would always get on future cars. Well, if AC Schnitzer make them for future cars, they're probably always going to be BMWs, so they probably will, but they're just brilliant. They're really good, especially for a manual car, as I say, with the heel and toe and stuff. It's just set up so well, so fantastic purchase and investment on those. Then the more expensive stuff. So we've got the eVenturi air intake that Evolve Automotive fitted, and it is just a work of art. It's the sexiest thing in the car. It works so well with the standard carbon brace that the M2 Competitions have got, and I just absolutely love it. The pickup, again, when I drive a regular M2, I can feel the difference in pickup. It's only small, but this car just picks up a little bit better lower down because of the fact it can just breathe that bit easier. Again, I'm sure it's added a few brake horsepower, but I haven't, dynoed it, so I can't absolutely confirm that, but it's just lovely. You can hear it as well. It's just such a nice, if I drop down into, let's see if we can hear it here. Road surface is quite loud, but it's just lovely. And when you're in a real move and you're pushing this car, you just get that lovely induction sound all the time. Then we've got, obviously, the other end of the exhalations, that inhalation, we've got exhalation, we've got the Remus back box, so it's the axle back system. Obviously this car is a OPF car, the dreaded OPF, so Remus had to sort of design an exhaust that wasn't going to tamper with that too much. So the axle back system on this car is Remus. I absolutely, again, love how it looks. I mean, again, I keep saying I'm not an aesthetic person, and this is not a garage queen, but the standard M2 Comps exhaust is just horrible. I call it the ball bag or the cow's udder. It just looks awful, and obviously there's no sound out of it, and this eliminates both of those issues. So you get a lot more sound, a lot more character, especially now it's done some miles and I put lots of heat cycles through it. It sounds really good, and it looks a million times better. You can't see the actual back box from the back. All you can see is the beautiful 4 carbon tips that are sticking out the end with it. Well, carbon and titanium. A couple of them are going a little bit purple from heat now, which is just great. A bit like my older M140. I don't know if you can remember that, but that had lovely colourful tips from where I'd put lots of heat through it. So fantastic, and definitely worth the investment on the M2 Competition, because it just brings back a lot of that character. I know the S55 engine is not the most tuneful or the most exotic engine in the world, but it's still a straight 6 and it still sounds pretty good on full chat. So yes, let it breathe and let it sing. What do I have planned? Well, as I mentioned before, I am on the lookout for some lightweight wheels, but at the moment funds are a bit tight, so I certainly can't afford that, and I don't need them, and I can't justify that right now. But other things that I am going to get done, I'm going to head over to Remus in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to get the Remus Res Delete, which basically eliminates some of the restrictions on the exhaust again and just gives us a bit more sound. I don't want this to be, the loudest car on the planet, but I would appreciate a little bit more sound from the exhaust, and that's exactly what that does. So again, it keeps intact all of the OPF filters, all the cats, etc., but it just alleviates some of the restrictions that this particular exhaust system has got. Also, while I'm at Motec, I'm going to get them to fit some of these new EBC pads that I'll talk about a bit more when I'm there. A number of reasons. This has got the small brake kit on it, and I just want a bit more initial bite in the brakes, and my front pads are actually about 70-75% worn, so they need replacing anyway. And I thought, rather than going for some more, stock pads, let's go for some higher performance pads that are designed for high performance and for some track use. So I'm gonna go and get them fitted. Before we end this video, I want to talk about things that I love with this car and things that maybe I don't love so much, because all cars have pros and cons. I don't care what anyone says. There is no such thing as a perfect car. And things that I love about this car, well, we talked about at the beginning of the video, it's just engaging. It's a fantastic little car. I get so excited about driving it all the time. No matter what is parked at home, I get excited about driving this car. Doesn't matter whether I've got an RS product, another M car, whatever it might be that's sitting outside my house, I always get excited about driving this car. And there's a number of reasons for that, but it's just an engaging little car, especially with the manual box. It just gets better mile after mile. It frees up. It's very close to what I remember the Porsche Cayman GT4 gearbox feeling. It's not quite as mechanical as that, but it just feels great, and I just love using the gearbox. So yeah, the gearbox, the overall feel of the car, especially on the road. It is heavy, this car, but you don't feel it too much on the road. It's only when you take it out on circuit, so it just feels great. The dimensions and everything, it's just a brilliant road car. It's a brilliant sports car. I also love the way it looks. I think it's spot on. It's sexy, it's mean, it's really cool. Yes, I do regret not going for maybe sunset orange, because I think that colour just looks epic on this car, as do in fact all the colours. Black again, but black I just don't have the patience for, because this isn't the garage queen. And my previous M2 that I had for about a year, I didn't do too many miles in that car, but it still picked up a few scratches along the way, which all cars do, but on dark colours, especially black cars, you just see them. And yeah, I just can't live with a black car. I haven't got the patience, and I don't clean it and look after it enough to have black paintwork. So I am happy with the Hockenheim Silver, and I get a lot of questions about it, and it does change completely. In this kind of diffused light, it's quite flat, but yet when it's really sunny, it looks quite metallic. So yeah, it's a great paintwork, and I'm not disappointed that I went for this, but it's just one of those things that, you know, I've had, what, 3 M lights, and every time I had either the blue one and I wanted the grey one, and when I had the white one I wanted the black one, and when I had the grey one I wanted the blue one again. So you you always want the colour maybe that you haven't got, but I'm not disappointed with this colour whatsoever. Other massive pros for me on this car are the driving position. Yes, I do sit a little bit too high. You know, I just wish that maybe I was an inch or two lower, but otherwise it's just great in here. There's loads of adjustment in the steering wheel. The pedal box is big enough, and yeah, and everything's just where I want it. The gear stick's just near the steering wheel. It's just a really nice place to sit, and ergonomically it's just brilliant as well on longer journeys. Elbows on the armrests, and I can slide forward or backwards, and on the door card, and I can hold onto the steering wheel in a nice relaxed way, which means on longer journeys I can just relax and I don't get arm or shoulder ache or anything. It's just very comfortable in those sorts of situations. What I don't like about this car, if I'm being honest, well, I guess number one is the actual thirst of the S55. It is a thirsty engine. It's a 3-litre straight 6 twin turbo, and it drinks. It really does. When you're hammering this car, it really, I think I got 77 miles out of a tank at a track day the other day. So it's one of the thirstiest motors I've ever driven, and that includes McLarens, Ferraris, etc. when you're pushing on. But when you're actually just doing normal daily stuff with it, it can still return 30 miles to the gallon. And obviously this being a manual makes it a bit thirstier, because the 6th gear is a bit shorter. So on longer journeys, like now I'm sitting here at 70 miles an hour and it's doing 2,500 revs. Whereas if I was in a DCT and I was in 7th gear, it would probably be doing closer to 2,000 revs, which does make a big difference on longer journeys for things like, you know, efficiency. We talked about the driving position before being really good. The seats themselves are very good, but although these are the same design seats as you get in the regular M3 and M4, they use a cheaper leather. I think it's like the Dakota leather on them, which is a bit of a shame because it's hard and it doesn't offer any support, in the sense that you can slide across it quite easy. So the actual overall support of the seat, although it's the same design as the M3 and M4 seat, it doesn't have the same leather, and therefore you do slide around in it a bit more. And I wish that they've gone to the extent of putting some lovely Alcantara down the side of the seat, but they didn't put any in the inside of the seat, which would help support you when you're on things like track days or on spirited drives. So yeah, I've noticed that with the new X3M that I had a walk around of the other day, they have actually put some Alcantara on the inserts of the seat, which just help support you. So I wish that they'd got that right, because they really haven't with these particular seats. Other slight issue is the overall weight of the car. BMW have purposely fattened this car up, in my opinion, to make space for the extortionately priced M2 CS, or whatever they're going to call it. There's lots of weight that can be stripped out of this car very quickly, and therefore making the car feel a lot better and giving it more performance. So I'm pretty sure they've done all of that on purpose to make room for the CS, and then therefore be able to charge people an extra 30 grand or whatever they're planning on charging you. So I wish, especially on track, you do feel its weight. Tyre temperatures and stuff go high very quickly as a result, and something that's this small and compact shouldn't be weighing over 1,600 kilos. I don't know how this weighs basically the same as an M3, when an M3 has got, you know, more car, more seats, more everything in it. I just don't quite get how they've managed to make this so heavy. But the S55 lump is a lot heavier than the N55, mostly to do with all the extra cooling and radiators and stuff that it has, the intercoolers. But yeah, overall weight, I wish that could be brought down a bit. And obviously if I had a massive wallet, there would be things that I would do with this car, like get rid of these seats, for instance, that would reduce the overall weight, and the wheels that I talked about earlier on. But otherwise, yeah, I absolutely love this car, and there's not a day that goes past that I regret buying it. I think for £50,000, if we're talking RRP, there are a few other alternatives out there, like Tony Lewis's Alpine Renault, for instance, but and obviously cars like the Porsche Cayman. There's a number of other cars out there that are alternatives, but for me, I need 4 seats, I need a big boot, I need to be able to throw my mountain bike in the back as well, and the M2 Competition just ticks all of those boxes. So super glad that I went for this car, I really am. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please remember to check out my Control and Shift website as well, where we sell t-shirts like this, I Pity the Fuel, quite relevant to this car and the S55 engine. Please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and leave any comments and questions below. I will see you at the next video. Cheers.